Good day, everyone. How are you? And welcome to Power Hour Coaching with me, Bernadette Boas of Ball of Fire Coaching, where we are igniting the leader within you in order for you to create riches in your work and in your life. And we love, absolutely love, I love coming to you each and every Thursday right here live across platforms. We're on LinkedIn and Facebook to really kind of provide you a coaching platform. If you're having a challenge at work or at home, if you have a question, if there's just something that you want some expert advice, tips, sometimes tough love, then I am offering you this opportunity each and every Thursday at 1 o'clock during our Power Hour to come join me. You have a couple of options in regards to doing that. As you see the kind of promotional posts put out there on our various platforms, you can always post your questions right then and there. And me and my team will be pulling them off, as I always do, as we lead up to this afternoon. You can also kind of see me live and post your question or challenge in the comment section. Now you have a couple of options here. You can post your comments without me being able to see your name and profile picture, and I'll just kind of address it generally. But if you do want me to see it, then I am broadcasting on StreamYard, so they'll ask you permission for me to see your name and your profile photograph. And if you don't mind me referencing and talking directly to you as well as everyone else, then you can also let me know that as well. If you want to, and you're out there live and you want to join me in the studio, believe it or not, you can post a comment, say something like, Bernadette, I want to join you live. And I can send you the link in the chat in order for you to join me right here. And I can provide you the coaching and the support that you need right away. So you can, because our whole goal is to give you these tips and strategies and advice and sometimes tough love so you can keep moving forward and create those riches in your work and your life. All right. Now, I will kind of go through the questions that I have already, and then we'll dig into each one of them separately. Okay. And I'll be watching for your comments. And as well as I'll be getting pinged in regards to anything that might be coming up on the various spots where we are broadcasting. So this is what we're going to talk about today. Let me make sure I'm in well, there's no particular order, actually. The first question is coming in around, I was put into a PIP. That is a performance improvement plan, for those of you who might not know, from my manager in February. And my manager hasn't said anything about my progress or status ever since. What do I do? Now, I should point out that at Ball of Fire Coaching, we support both corporate executives, HR leaders, and hiring managers, as well as entrepreneurs. So you'll see a mix of both business ownership type of questions, as well as kind of corporate employee questions. But at the same time, I have found, and so have my clients and those that have participated, have gained great benefits from all of the questions, regardless if they're specific from someone that is in a job or in their own business. So in this case, I can always relate performance improvement plans to just about any of you. Okay. So we'll talk about that. Then we're going to talk about, I asked my boss for a coach to help me improve my leadership, but he said no. What expectations should I have in getting mentoring or coaching? Great question. Absolutely great question. I want to start a podcast, but not sure what I would talk about. Love it, love it, love it. We'll talk about that. And then how do I initiate a women's group at work? And again, could be at home, or it could be in your own business, or it could be in the workplace. So any of these can actually be relevant to anyone, whether you work for a company or you have your own company. They will all be relevant to you. All right. So I'll keep an eye out for your questions and or challenges, your comments. But let's dig in, shall we? All right. So the first one, I was put into a PIP from my manager in February, and my manager hasn't said anything about my progress or status ever since. What do I do? All right, so it is almost May, so that's several months. The first thing that I talked to this individual about, and again, as a coach, my job is to actually kind of listen to you, understand, the question, the challenge, the situation that you're dealing with, because it could be a negotiation, it could be a new business opportunity, it could be a big decision that you need to make. But what my goal is to really understand from you what it is that you're working through, and then ask you a whole slew of questions in order for you to actually come to the answer yourself, or the solution, or the decision. Now, in many times, I'm kind of a hybrid coach consultant. Many times my clients would ask me for guidance and specific direction. And if that's the case, then I give it to them. But as a coach, I really want to ensure that I'm empowering you to make those decisions, solve those problems, kind of answer the question on your own, okay? Because the situation has to do with you. So you have to always be in kind of your own shoes. And my job is to just guide you there, all right? So I spoke to him in regards to the situation with the performance improvement plan. Basically what this is, for those of you who aren't familiar, basically what it is if you are being challenged in any way, shape, or form, your performance isn't up to snuff, maybe you're not fulfilling the responsibilities that you have within your job description, proactively, and both in a positive, supportive mode, or it could be, all right, you've been given chance time and time and time again, and I'm going to put you in this performance improvement plan, and I need to see results, or we need to discuss alternatives. So it's not always a bad thing to have a performance improvement plan. I want to point that out first. And in this case, this was a kind of a surprise, which shouldn't happen. And actually, if you want to check back in our previous Power Hour coaching sessions, we discussed this last week with someone, because it was a surprise to them. But it shouldn't be a surprise. But in this case, the performance review wasn't as much of a surprise as the performance improvement plan. But I assured him not to look at it negatively, not to start beating himself up. And that's what I would suggest to any of you. You don't beat yourself up. You don't start, questioning yourself. What you need to be doing is asking a lot of clarifying questions to your boss or to the HR individual to really understand exactly what it means to be in this performance improvement plan. So that was my first set of questions was, do you understand kind of the actual experiences or evidence or situations that kind of created this need for a performance improvement plan? It can't be just thrown at you without any backing or facts or exact scenarios. It needs to be, you shouldn't be surprised. So, did you understand the situation? And in this case, he said yes. All right. So then what is the goal of the performance improvement plan? Was that laid out? And it wasn't necessarily clearly laid out, but it was, a few items were laid out. And that's what I would suggest. Always ensure, all right, what are our goals and objectives for this performance improvement plan? Now, that doesn't mean that the individual or the employee isn't solely accountable or responsible, but what it means is they have responsibility to the performance improvement plan. Obviously, it's their job. At the same time, the manager has responsibility and accountability as well to be supporting that employee. And in this case, it was evident that if he was put into this performance improvement plan back in February and the manager has not come to them at all, him in this case, at all to discuss it or to status it or to give feedback, positive or negative, nothing has happened. Well, that is a failure on the manager's part. However, I was talking to the employee in this case, And so it's their responsibility to actually also follow through on their performance improvement plan. So I made sure, and I asked a lot of questions around a clear understanding of the performance improvement plan. What are those things that need to be addressed? What are the metrics? How is he going to be measured? What is the timeline that these things have to occur by? And then what are going to be kind of the check-ins, the statuses, the milestones, and how is that going to take place? If all of that is discussed up front and is made very clear, then there should be no question as the individual goes along as far as, when is this performance improvement plan done? Like, when is it up? And what happens if I'm not meeting the goals and objectives? Or what happens if I am? And what will what will either one of those end results do to my ongoing employment? So all of that needs to be very clear up front, and then should be acted upon as the performance improvement plan timeline progresses. Now, so as I said, both employee and manager have responsibility here, but it's the employee's job that's not at risk, but that's in question, that is in the performance improvement plan. So even if the manager falls flat on their face and doesn't follow through on what they're responsible for, it's still the employee. In this case, it's still his responsibility to get back to the manager and kind of seek that feedback, seek that status, seek that reporting of progress or any observation that the manager might have. I mean, it's your job. So you need to ensure that you're following through on what this performance improvement plan is meant to deliver or result in. And any failure to do so, well, that's really going to be on you, not necessarily on your manager. Now, if your manager is kind of has disappeared and is nowhere to be found, well, you need to address that, and you need to be very persistent with your manager. And then if not, then I would say go to HR, and because they're obviously involved with the performance improvement plan. So go to HR and kind of let them know and seek their guidance and seek their support. You're not going to kind of bitch and complain. You're just simply wanting support in regards to everyone following through, including yourself, on what this performance improvement plan is meant to accomplish. All right. So you really want to ensure all of those things are taking place, recognizing it's your job, it's your, security and stability. Therefore, you need to take ownership. And if you're not getting any support, you need to go find it. Okay. All right. I hope that helps others as it did for him. And he has some work to do, but he'll get it done. All right. This next one. I asked my boss for a coach to help me improve my leadership, but he said no. What expectations should I have in getting mentoring or coaching? Surprisingly, this isn't anything new that I haven't heard before. But there's a lot of reasons for it. It's not always a negative thing. It's not always a situation that causes red flags. But it's something that definitely hits the individual and has them questioning the value and the importance and the opportunities that they might have within this team and this company. And so it's definitely something that you want to follow through on. So she, in this case, recognized that there was things in her ability to lead. And she has a small team, very small, like 2 or 3 people. At the same time, though, she's been getting feedback, and she's been getting, performance review time, right? She's gotten some feedback in regards to how she needs to be a little bit more assertive. She needs to speak up more. She needs to kind of own the room. She needs to feel like she belongs, and, she's doing just the opposite in all those areas. And she's taking that feedback very seriously, and she intentionally wants to get it addressed. Now, her going, and it was very appropriate for her to go to her boss and say, okay, so these are some, some strategies or options that I know are out there. One of which is, having a coach. Is that something that we could do? Unfortunately, she took the no and kind of walked away and didn't follow through. And what I would suggest to anyone is anytime you're going in and making a request, for whatever the answer is, you want to continue seeking understanding. So even if it's a yes, yes, you can have a coach. Great. Then this is what I'm looking for. This is what I would be expecting. What are your thoughts? What are your goals or objectives for making this investment? So you continue to want to seek understanding around whatever decision's made. If it's no, again, you want to gain understanding. What concerns do you have in regards to, my engaging a coach, or what reason would there be for not having, a coach? What other options are there? Is there an opportunity for you and I to kind of, meet on a regular basis for mentoring and coaching? Is there training? Are there classes? Are there things that I could be doing, elsewhere within the company? Does HR provide any type of, training and support that maybe we're not aware of that might be a good supplement, as opposed to, hiring a coach? But what you want to do is you just don't want to take the answer. You want to continue to understand the decision that has been made, positive or negative. And so that wasn't happening, or that didn't happen. And therefore, she was going to be following up on that, because again, you don't know what's in the mind of the other party, the other person. So they might have had a bad experience. They might have budget constraints. They might not be familiar with whatever it is that you're asking about. And therefore, they're really unsure of the value. And therefore, one thing that that could be suggested is, even if it's a no, well, if I were to go and kind of put a plan together to show you the areas that I'm seeking support in, and the goals and the outcomes that I'd be targeting toward, and then illustrate the value and the impact that would have on not only myself, but on the team and the company, would that be something that you would then consider, a change of decision? Because again, you're, the person that you're talking to, your boss in this case, you don't know what is driving their decision. And at the same time, if they're all of a sudden you're asking for an investment of some kind, you might not have come out and said, oh, well, I'd like to spend whatever and hire a coach. But just by saying you want, to hire a coach, or you want to get training or mentoring, that to a manager who has maybe a P&L they're responsible for, a profit loss or budget that they're responsible for, they're all automatically going to dollar signs. And there might be a concern that, well, we're going to spend money, and what are we going to get for it? Well, again, if they're not familiar with what they could get for it, then you have the opportunity to kind of do the homework and provide that business case to them, and even educate them, although they might not ever recognize it as you educating them. But you're actually able to kill two birds with one stone, because they may be uneducated on the value of whatever it is you're asking about. So you always want to kind of ask additional questions for you to gain better understanding of where they're coming from. All right. So, basically I had mentioned to her, or asked her, do you understand his take on it? Where he stands when it comes to coaching, what his experience has been or not been, and again, then what does the company provide? Can you go and seek, understanding from HR or your learning development, area, to kind of see if there's maybe something that they've done in the past. Because I've had clients that have come to me for training and for different workshops. And so we'll start talking and I'll say, are you sure that you don't have something already in the company that you could be leveraging? Now, I'm not looking to kind of work my way out of an engagement opportunity, but at the same time, I want to be sure that they're leveraging what they already have. And there's a lot of cases where I can actually augment and complement what they have internally and provide some extra sauce, so to speak. But definitely be asking the questions out there, whether you work for someone, in their own business, or you work for, a company, small or large. Make sure you understand what training, development, mentoring, coaching opportunities are already there or that exist, and yet you might have to outsource it. Because many people will go along and not really ever kind of investigate what training opportunities, development opportunities that they are made available to them. So you definitely want to be doing that. All right. And then if need be, because I've had clients that have done this, if need be, one particular client actually, I've been working with since about 2015. And she actually came to me directly. She works with a very large global conglomerate. And I am sure that there is a lot of various training, even coaching, but development programs, throughout her organization. And yet, whether or not she did the work or not, I can't really recall, but whether or not she did the research and asked the questions or not, she came directly to me and she actually pays out of pocket. So just because she has her own kind of personal and professional goals that she wants to be working on, and we've been working together ever since, and didn't feel that it was not necessarily needed or obligated by the company to do it. Now, I have suggested to her multiple times to go and see if they would cover this investment that she's been making for the last 5 or 6 years. But she's pretty set on the fact that, no, this is something I want to do for myself. So there's a lot of different options and alternatives. And at any time, for anybody that's out there, at any time, and I'm looking for it, that you want to even discuss and get some ideas and some strategies and tips and advice, then reach out to me, like schedule some time, complimentary time, and let's talk about it. And let's talk through your situation, the question that you have, the challenge that you're dealing with, the decision you're trying to make, the need for just strategies and creative ideas. Don't go at it alone. Know that there's someone like myself out there that is, here and available to you for, a 30-minute conversation to kind of keep you moving forward, because that's the whole goal and objective of everything that we do at Ball of Fire Coaching. All right. And if you want to learn more, you can always go to balloffirecoaching.com. I will kind of warn you right now, we will be transitioning our website over the next 4 weeks. But at the same time, it'll be pretty consistent as far as content, and just, we are making some major changes, but you'll be able to find all the important information about how to get in touch with us at balloffirecoaching.com. Okay, so let's move on. Next question. Okay, let me just check out any comments. All right. I want to start a podcast, but not sure what I would talk about. And I find this so amusing just because I'm such a talker. But I find this so amusing because the questions that I typically get around starting a podcast is, I don't know where to start as far as doing a podcast, and it gets down to the technical things. At the same time, this question is very appropriate because there's many people out there. It relates to, I want to write a blog. I want to write a book. I want to, do a podcast. I want to do live streaming, videos. And yet so many people feel as if like, what would I talk about? And first, before we get there, okay, so we're going to back up a little bit. Before we get there, what I want to understand is why. So that's the first question you should ask yourself is why do you want to do a podcast or a book or a blog or a live streaming? Why? Why do you want to do it? Now, I'm not looking for more so kind of the tangible, like, oh, well, I want to make money and, I want to become famous. I really want to understand, like, why do you want to put yourself out there and share whatever it is you're about to share? Like, why do you want to help people? Do you want to serve? Do you want to give back? Do you want to, educate and inspire and motivate? Is it because of the fact that you want to create a legacy? You want to tell your story to help others, but you really want to understand why first. All right. In this case, why do you want to start a podcast? And keep thinking about the question that you asked as far as what would I talk about? All right. So then you come up with goals. What are your goals for this podcast? Well, I'm looking to, get my name recognition out there. My goal is to get new clients. My goal is to, be seen as an expert, and maybe, even if you work in corporate, be seen as an expert and even find opportunities for advancement or for public speaking or for, getting just more and more exposure, not only within your company, but maybe within your industry. So, think through what are your goals for then starting this podcast, of which you'll figure out what you're going to talk about. Okay. And what are the outcomes that you want? So those, there's many people out there that start a podcast or write a book because they do not only want to use it as kind of a business card, which podcasts can be made to be, a business card, meaning that the more and more that you're out there and getting that exposure is a calling card for, businesses or individuals to reach out, or companies to reach out to you and engage you. Some people want to do it for generating actual income, whether it's from the sale of a book or it's sponsorships and advertising and all that. Some people want it to even, especially from a podcast, actually a book too, they want to kind of build on their authority. They want to build on their expertise and experience. And certainly putting yourself out there, whether podcast, video, book, certainly helps you kind of refine some skills, whether that be presentation skills, communication skills, leadership skills, authority skills, influence skills. There's a lot of personal development that can come out of starting a podcast, writing a book, or whatever. So think about your why, think about your goals, and then think about the outcomes. Okay, so that's kind of the big kind of mission statement that you really want to be focused on before you even answer the question, what would I talk about? But once you do, you can then say, all right, then what would I talk about? And you probably hear from many, many, many people. Every one of us have a story. Every one of us has something to share. Every one of us even has something to teach. If we've been on this earth any longer than 5 years, we have something that other people can benefit from. It could be our pains, our joys, our lessons, our blessings, our experiences, expertise, our successes, our missteps, even our failures, our triumphs. There's just a whole slew of things that you'd be so surprised once you kind of intentionally sit down and think about it, which we'll get to in a minute, that you can actually talk about, write about, and share, and impact people's lives. All right. So I want to get that across to you first, is that you have to believe and know within yourself that, yes, you definitely have something that you can share, and that you have something that you could teach or inspire or, even prevent. You have information that could help prevent someone from doing something, so forth and so on. All right. You have to believe in that first, or it's going to be a struggle for you, because if you don't believe it, it'll be a struggle for you to kind of get out of your head and think creatively about what it is you could talk about. Okay, so now tactically, how do you go about figuring out what you could talk about? So you could grab a notepad. I have so many of these. It's a $1, composition book, and I have them in like all kinds of colors. And I have, like 4 or 5 right here, and each one of them are for different reasons. But I have one that's my creative book, I call it. And basically it's when I get into a mode of, okay, so I have to start planning my podcast topics. I have to start planning, my training topics, whatever the case might be. And I just want to sit down and really just start scribbling out ideas. But let's kind of just stay within ourselves and figure out, how can you figure out what you can talk about? So I led her through a series of exercises, but one I would suggest for you is take a journal. Maybe you're better on your phone or something automated, but get a blank sheet of paper. And what I have kind of coached people to do is kind of think back, like go back to your earliest of memories and work forward to where you are today. And just think through all the big experiences in your life, the big events, the big, challenges, the big triumphs, the milestones that you've achieved, and what was it about those things that kind of made you who you are? So for instance, when I did this many years ago, but when I did this for myself, I went back and I looked at the fact that, well, I'm one of 12 children. There's a lot to write about. But then I looked at, okay, so what did that mean? Not only, managing a household of 14, but what did it mean to me? Like, what influence did that have on me? And then, and that brought me to kind of what was, my childhood like, and what did I believe, and what was I, learning, and what was I doing, and how was I progressing, and what were my experience like in all facets, whether it was at school, on the playground, with boys, with my siblings, with friends, in my sports, in the early work years. Trust me, we had to work at a very young age, even if it was painting my father's, business office. So what was it all about, all of those things that kind of had a great influence or great memory or power, and made me who I am today? Then I, kind of worked my way into college, and then out of college. And then what was my work experience like? And how did that translate to my, personal life? And, you just kind of go all the way through. Now, there'll be some right brainers and left brainers. So there'll be some, that will look at things very, technically or very tactically. What were my skills? What were my expertise? What was, what does my resume look like? What skills do I have that I can, teach and talk about? And then some will go very creatively, is all the word that's coming up for me right now. And that would be, from a storytelling perspective, more emotional, more heart, more lessons learned, more best practices, more, blessings and gratitudes and thankfulness. So whatever direction you go in, or whatever your style is, because again, some people's style is very facts and figures, and some people's style is very much storytelling and daydreaming and creative. So just kind of start, scribbling out all kinds of notes in regards to your experiences, your expertise, the events and milestones in your life, and see if there's something that really starts kind of making you giddy, and giving you butterflies and getting you excited. Because the one thing getting more serious about doing a podcast or writing a book or anything, it is a commitment. All right. It is a commitment. It takes time, it takes energy. And the one thing you want to be sure of, this, has to do with everything in life. It has to do with starting a business, has to do with starting a new job, making a move. You kind of have to be all in. Because if you're not, then it's going to burn out very quickly. And so there's many, many, many people out there that are starting, especially podcasts, who really kind of aren't all in. Their heart's just not there. It's the trend thing to do. It's a very, popular, very viral type of strategy to use, whether, you're in your own business, you're in corporate, or you're a stay-at-home, and it's just, a different method of getting yourself out there. But they don't look at the seriousness of it, I would say, or the business aspect of it. And therefore, they'll start doing it, but then they kind of lose interest or they lose excitement about it, because then I don't want to call it a job. I love it. I've never questioned it in the 12 years I've been doing it, even when the workload, is heavy. It's just because I just absolutely love it. So you really want to anchor yourself, for anyone who's asking, I want to start a podcast, but don't know what to talk about. You first also want to be sure that it's what it is that you want to do. And you want to do it for the long term. Now, the long term, I would tell you, is not forever. But I would definitely say that if you're going to dive into something like a podcast, you want to have a 12 to 18 month, goal out there. And the horizon is 18 months out. You want to, because that's going to be the consistency. That's going to be the kind of the stickiness. That's going to be where you kind of pick up steam and you're building the platform. It's not something that's just done for a month and then you're like, oh, okay, bye. It's a lot of work. So just staying on kind of what would you talk about? So find from that list of topics, and it could be a page, it could be pages. Find the things that get you excited that you could talk about every week. Some people have daily podcasts. Some people have multiple times a week. Some people have once a week. Some people have every couple of weeks. Whatever you decide on, and that's getting more into the how to do a podcast, which we're not going to get into. But, to find what you can talk about, find the thing that's going to keep you engaged and keep you wanting to go back and, kind of delve into that subject matter. Now, and again, it could be something that you're one-on-one with all the time, meaning you and the audience, or you have guests. So when I first started my podcast, I started telling stories and sharing, from my perspective. And then I wanted to start getting other people's perspective. And now, 12 years later, it's a hybrid. Sometimes I do it on my own, and then other times I have guests. So again, look at your content, look at all the creative ideas that you came up with, and kind of decide what do you want to talk about? I mean, look at the type of podcasts that are out there. There's everything from, data analytics to how to deal with your period. I mean, there's just about anything that you can find from a subject matter perspective. You just have to find something that, you're really passionate about, that you can delve into on a frequent basis. All right. Okay. So that was all around starting a podcast and trying to figure out what you would talk about. And again, we all have something to say. We all have something to teach. We all have something to give, to inspire, to motivate, to give tough love on. Don't sell yourself short that you have nothing to say. It's why people always say when it comes to writing a book, everybody has a book within them. And I definitely agree with that. Everybody has a book within them. All right. So our last question, unless someone out there has a question. And again, if you want to talk through And you definitely, you don't want to necessarily put yourself, here, um, publicly, so to speak, to get your question answered or challenge addressed. Then schedule some complimentary time with me, a 30-minute phone call, and let me provide you some support and the support that you deserve and need. So you're not there alone. You don't have to be. So take some time and schedule some time with me, and I'd be more than happy to give you some tips and strategies and techniques and advice and sometimes tough love. All right. All right. So our last question. How do I initiate a women's group at work? Now, if you have participated in these, whether it's the Power Hours or my Powerhouse Maverick training, or any of my online work and programs, you'll know that I'll just ask you question after question after question, and a lot of the questions are the same, because these are, and if you make note of these questions, you would see that they're the same, and therefore there's only a few questions you should ever need to be asking yourself to work through whatever might be going on. Okay, so in this case, I asked her why. Was the first question I asked. Why do you want to start a women's group? Because again, oftentimes someone, all of a sudden hears or learns of someone doing something and it appears to be a trend, or it appears to be something that they should be doing. And therefore they're like, oh, I should be doing it, therefore I'll do it. And it's not the case all the time. And going back to that last question, it's the same with a podcast or a book. It's not for everyone. And you shouldn't feel intimidated or insecure that, oh, well, everyone else is doing it, I should be doing it. No, I've never been on TikTok. I've never been on Snapchat. I never watched the Kardashians. Just because everyone else seems to be doing it doesn't mean you have to do it or should do it. So it's the reason why I always tend to start off my coaching sessions with individuals around why. Even if it's a problem, why are you having this problem? So in this case, how do I initiate a women's group at work? Why do you want to start a women's group? And again, what are your goals? What are your outcomes? What is it that you have to think of the WIFM? So what's in it for them to participate? It's not only going to be all about you as to why you want to start a women's group. You really need to think about, okay, so I'm going to go out and I'm going to seek, these other individuals to participate, but why should they? And the way you're going to be successful in getting them to participate is to really understand, get in their head as far as why they would want to participate. What's in it for them? What's the benefit? What are they going to get from it? What are they going to learn from it? And it could, cover, so many things that they could get out of it, both quantitatively and qualitatively. But first, you answer the question, why do you want to start a women's group? Well, in this case, it was, to, get further exposure in the company. It was to learn from other people. It was to, we are a small percentage of the organization, meaning that it's a heavy male organization and there's very few women, and therefore, they feel that, or she feels that there's an opportunity for all the women to rally together and support each other. So you just come up with and think through all of the reasons why you would want to initiate, and make sure it's your sided and their sided. All right. Now, you also want to go one step further. What's in it for the company? So there's what's in it for you, what's in it for the women that would participate, and what's in it for the company. And trust me when I say there's a huge amount of benefit to a company for there to be, in this case, a focus on a women's group. It would, provide them great feedback and understanding of what the women are, dealing with, or, working on, or contributing, or challenged with. What the views and the ideas and the perception of the women. It would certainly help a company from a branding perspective that, they have a focus on their women within their company, no matter how small or large the population is. So there's tremendous amount of benefits. And you want to think through both, the pros and the cons. So what are the cons? Well, it could take time away from the women, in the work hours. And I won't go into them, but you just want to be thinking through kind of why do you want to do it? What are the desired outcomes that you have for it? What are the benefits for yourself, for the participants and the company? And then you really want to take the next step to kind of build a case for why you want to formulate this women's group. And the case, basically looks like everything that we just talked about. And to show the company that you want, because maybe you need investment, maybe you need some funding, it's going to be over lunch. So you want, it covered by the company. Maybe you're going to hire speakers or bring in, coaches to work with the women, whatever the case might be. So, you also want to kind of formulate your plan, your kind of business case. And then you want to even seek out, before you present it for approval, you might, go and seek out sponsors. Is there someone, even a male, in this case, since we're talking women's group, you might even find that there's a male executive out there that has influence and has, kind of power within the company that would support and sponsor a women's group. But having a sponsor on board that can advocate for your plan around women's group would tremendously help your, I don't want to call it a case, help your proposal. You help your initiative is to have that sponsor. Now, when you have that sponsor, you also then, really work with that individual to discuss their, kind of roles and responsibility and contribution to the group, not only as the sponsor, but even as a, kind of active participant, not necessarily in the room, especially if it's a male sponsor, and it's a women's group. But at the same time, don't discount the fact that even though you're formulating something around women, that there can't be men involved. As a matter of fact, it drives me crazy. If I go to a women's conference, it drives me crazy when there's no men in the room. Drives me crazy. And that's not necessarily in the room, because there's usually men in the room because they want to know what the women are talking about. But there's typically not men on stage. There's not men in the, kind of the presentation, MC, speaking type of role. So you're not hearing from them during a women's group. It drives me crazy because the question that most women groups, I'm going on a tangent, but let me if you would, for 1 second. But the one thing that, women are typically trying to formulate or trying to support each other on is the challenges or the opportunities or the strategies needed to work, in this case, in a male-dominated company or industry or field. And so how do you do that working in a silo of just women? You need to understand from a male's point of view, whatever it is that you're strategizing on or, challenged with. You want to hear from the men. You don't want to just kind of be in your silo with all the, with the women. So when it comes to initiating a women's group, I was like so excited that she wanted to do this. And you just need to kind of put your plan together. The why, the goals, the outcome, the benefits, the what's in it for them, not only yourself, the participants, but also the company. What are any type of funding or investment that the company might need to make in this proposal that you're presenting? Seek out a sponsor that can, kind of advocate and support, and then just go and initiate. Right? So that would take care of that question. Now, anybody else have any type of question or challenge that they're dealing with, or a decision that needs to be made, and you just need some ideas and someone to bounce, your thinking off of? in our last few minutes. If not, but let me just kind of take a look across the board. I don't see anything. And again, feel free at any time to reach out to me. Schedule some complimentary time. coachmebernadette.com/discovery call. Go and check me out over at balloffirecoaching.com or on LinkedIn. Certainly link in with me. And if you ever, have a question or a situation that you just need someone to listen to you, then just know that someone's here for you. All right. Because that's our goal and objective at Ball of Fire Coaching, is to ensure that all of you, whether entrepreneurs or corporate professionals, are really, becoming the leaders that you're meant to be and creating the riches in your work and life that you deserve. So if there's not any additional questions, I will check you out next Thursday at 1 o'clock Eastern time. All right. Have a good week, everybody. Take care.